Fibromyalgia is often described as a chronic pain condition. People will have had pain for at least 3 to 6 months before they have a diagnosis, and it's constant pain. It doesn't go away. It's not just in your arm, it's all over body pain. But it also has things like, we call it within the community, brain fog. You're trying to think about a word in a sentence and it will just go outside of your grasp. You'll be thinking about, let's say, could you pull out that chair for me? And the word that will come to mind will be table, so it can be related, but it affects people in different ways. The other main characteristic is non-refreshing sleep. So if you've had 8 hours of sleep, you wake up the next day and you feel as if you've not had any. It can be quite an impact in people's lives. It'll affect people in different ways, take away their job, take away their social life.
Will that affect with if someone got a learning disability, or does that not happen?
There's definitely people within our community that will have learning disabilities or other conditions. But no, it just affects everybody. It's random in who will get it. What they do think is there might be a genetic predisposition. So if you have someone within your family that already has it, then you might have a higher risk of getting it. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you will get it. But I don't think there's any overlap or specific overlap with any learning disability. So I think, driving about the country doing my IT job, and I had developed pain. Pain in, I think it was on the right side of my body, my arm. And it was a case of, this pain's not normal. It was fairly constant. It started to go to other parts of my body. So I went to see the GP and they thought, yeah, okay, your arm, have you done anything to it? You're using a computer, so is it carpal tunnel? Have you got any sort of arthritis? They start looking at things like that. But then as you've went on for 3, 6 months, there's no obvious impact to your body. There's no cut. There's no real cause that underlines why you have the symptoms you have. And they start to say, after they've done some blood tests, well, it's not arthritis, it's not this, it's not that. You will then start to consider things like fibromyalgia. And once they've ruled out other conditions that have the same symptom cluster, then they'll say, yeah, it fits in with fibromyalgia. They'll do a physical assessment. You might get referred to a rheumatologist, and then they'll confirm that it does seem to be fibromyalgia. So it can be quite a protracted process. So before you even get diagnosed, you're going to be suffering for 6 months, and then it could be up to 2 years or more before you get diagnosed as you go around multiple doctors.
Is this pain chronic, and is it like hereditary as well?
Actually, it's one of those words that's misunderstood a lot by people, in that chronic sounds as if is it really bad? But chronic really means, how long have you had it? And it's a lifelong condition. And the pain is part of the diagnosis. You have to have had it for over 3 to 6 months. The jury's out on whether it is hereditary or not. If a mother has it, then maybe the daughter has it. They think that there might be this genetic aspect to it, but it could be that you've got a risk of getting it. It's higher because it's occurred in your family already. Maybe when you're in a car crash, you're giving birth. So some sort of trauma or some sort of environmental aspect that happens throughout your life, and then that's you with fibromyalgia. But somebody else that's giving birth, I mean, it's a normal thing, or a car crash, you wouldn't necessarily develop fibromyalgia. So it's a bit of both coming together, perhaps.
With the pain, Des, so could it be like any part of the body? Like sometimes I get it in my feet, but that's when it's static or when it's not moving. Do you think it's to do with the amount of activity someone's doing, or is it just genetically that they get that pain of not moving and their foot is static?
The pain itself, they think that the body's central nervous system that carries all the signals. So if we feel heat, we feel cold, that's our body telling us, because of nerves that are on the end of our fingers or around the periphery of our body. And it's also used to tell us when we have pain. So if you put your hand on a hot kettle, then your fingertips will tell you, the nerves say, oh, that's hot, don't do that again. With fibromyalgia, those signals don't get turned off as they normally would do in someone that doesn't have fibromyalgia. So your body's always miscommunicating signals. Now, you said about being static. It can be that if you don't move too much with fibromyalgia, As I'm sitting here the now, I'll feel a little bit uncomfortable with my legs as I'm sitting down, and getting up and moving about will then take some of that pain away. But that's more through distraction and increase and changing my activity. But the body will process signals from how your body's interacting with your environment in a not good way that ends up with you feeling things that other people perhaps would appreciate. If my son gave me a cuddle after scoring a goal at football, as he did when he was young, he's pulled back at some points because he sees his daddy grimace because he thinks he's caused me pain. And yeah, a cuddle, how bad could that be? But again, sometimes with someone with fibromyalgia, yeah, you'll feel pain as a result of something that is just the simplest
Going
thing.
forward, what have you got the aims and objective with the organization and with pain?
As an organization, we want to improve the awareness of this condition, because if you're not aware of it, then it won't be on anybody's radar. It won't be in anybody's agenda to improve things. But beyond that, we want to fund PhDs. We want to participate and help research about the condition, because that'll make a difference to people's lives. We're going to expand what we provide as services to people within our community as well. One of the things that we're looking at the moment is to help people apply for benefits. We have a volunteer team at present that will give people advice when they apply for benefits. Fibromyalgia being an invisible condition and people suffering the symptoms that they do, it's always difficult trying to get benefits money off the DWP, but with invisible conditions like our own, it can be extra challenging, and people need to know how to consider their own symptoms. So we are looking to get a paid benefits person on our staff to help people improve the quality of what we do in that area. And we really want to increase the services that we provide across the board. Research is going to help with how people are treated with regards to fibromyalgia. We can help people in how individuals deal with their own individual fibromyalgia. And that might be telling them to get up and do a little bit more activity, look at doing some Tai Chi, look at doing some seated yoga, anything that encourages movement. But we'll also be talking to them about, are you on the right treatment program? Have you tried this? Have you tried that? And that comes back to awareness. Because if doctors aren't aware of certain treatments for fibromyalgia and the patients won't be aware of those treatments, we can help them be aware and then go to the doctor and say, can I try this? Can I do this? So it's all about awareness.
Whereabouts can the pain affect the person with fibromyalgia? Can it affect people in different places?
It definitely will affect different people, but it's widespread body pain. You won't just get fibromyalgia in your arm. If you can have very similar symptoms and describe the pain that people have, let's say in my arm. If it was only in my arm, then we would maybe tell people to say to go and have a look at complex regional pain syndrome. That would be more likely. But if you have pain all over your body, then that's when you start to consider fibromyalgia. But it might be, my arm might be the sorest bit today, my other leg might be the sorest bit tomorrow. And it also depends on what I'm doing. If I end up doing a little bit more walking, legs are going to be the thing that perhaps are more present in my mind. But the pain will be all over the body. And if you think about what I was saying about the cuddle and the nerves reacting, if you're doing something within a bit of your body that you bump into something, or you're lifting these things all the time that you wouldn't normally do, then that's probably where you'll find the pain. But some people will have the pain more present in some areas than others. They might have sore shoulders more often. It just depends on the individual.
How long would you wait until you go to your GP or get a diagnosis?
In my situation, it was after I had the symptoms for a couple of weeks that I then went to the GP and thinking, okay, something's wrong with my arm. But it was only after we had 2 or 3 appointments and the pain was elsewhere that the GP literally printed something off the internet and showed it to me and says, have a read at this. I think this is what you've got. But you have a read through it and tell me if anything disagrees with what you're experiencing. So I went back with an appointment maybe about 2 weeks later, and went and said, yeah, no, that does sound like it. And that was part of the way how I get diagnosed. So any symptoms, anything that's different with your body, you should go and see the GP. But it might take a couple of appointments with fibromyalgia before it maybe even comes up in conversation, but definitely until it's confirmed as a diagnosis.
Well, what if the condition is not treated? What's the inevitable outcome?
It seems too simple to say you're going to be in pain, and that pain is going to get worse. But without the proper treatment, then you're going to be reduced to just suffering with the pain. And it's one of these things that if you have more stress, more things going on, thoughts about maybe losing your job or losing the income that you have, that all adds and modifies or amplifies the pain that you're in. Stress is just not a very good thing when you've got something like fibromyalgia. If you weren't treated with fibromyalgia, then your symptoms are just, they're not going to stop. You're going to be sitting in pain and suffering from those symptoms. Without interventions, you've got no hope of improving them. It will not make you, you're not likely to die from it, but you can understand that being in pain all the time is not pleasant. But if you're managing to increase your activity and have benefits from that or get the right drug treatments, you'll be in a better place. Or we ask within our community sometimes, what has fibromyalgia done for you? Because we do talk about it in terms of, yeah, fibromyalgia's taking this and taking that, but what has it done for you? And it can introduce you to friends that you would never meet. Certainly from my experience, I found out a lot more about our health systems within this country, about medical science and about medical processes. I've got a lot more knowledge than I ever thought to have in these subjects. And yeah, I found people, lifelong friends, as a result of being part of this community. You can also have an appreciation of what life is about. I mean, you start to pacing and considering whether something is good or bad to do when it might result in pain or it might result in you feeling a lack of energy. You start to evaluate things differently. So you can have a different philosophy than you might have had prior to fibromyalgia, and you value the good things in life.
What type of exercise can you do to prevent the
We don't know
symptoms?
how fibromyalgia develops, so we're not quite clear on what can prevent. We can do things that can alleviate and make yourself perhaps have a better experience. And if you sit and do nothing, the body muscles will atrophy. You find that in people that are in a wheelchair that might have limited movement, that the legs won't work as well if they don't get out and do leg exercises. And while that's very obvious with people in that situation, we've got to think about it in the cases of fibromyalgia when doing exercise might result in some increased pain. But that exercise can keep your muscles in tone, can make you feel better about how the day goes and have a more positive outlook, can help if you're doing something like Tai Chi, then that has a mindfulness aspect and can relax you, which then means stress is perhaps less of a problem. And you can feel confident about being able to do more as well. So increasing activity levels is really important, but also pacing and listening to your body and not trying to do too much because, yeah, pain can come along. There's no point getting into a boom or bust cycle where you feel as if you get a good day and you try and overdo it. And then you end up wondering why you're in your bed for 2 days afterwards, after doing all the housework or doing a full days of it, exercise.
What advice would you give to like myself? I've got a visual impairment, I've got a disability. Someone who has a disability or who's wheelchair or disabled or any kind of disability. What kind of advice would you give to them if they came across this, if they knew someone that had this condition?
A little bit of empathy will go a long way. Asking about it, make yourself aware of it, is definitely something that's worthwhile. Don't be afraid of making mistakes either. Just see what that person might want from you. Ask them if there's a way you can help. Ask them if there's a way, if there's anything about it that it might be worthwhile knowing. Find the humor as well. Humour is very important with health conditions. Sometimes we'll take pot shots at ourselves and our own condition because, yeah, that sort of humour helps us get through things. But yeah, empathy and understanding goes a long way. Go to our website, which is www.fmauk.org. That has all our social media handles, our contact addresses. You can sign up for our newsletter. Probably a good place to start.